Kia ora guys, I'm Mikey. Welcome to Shift Notes episode 9. Thanks heaps for tuning in. First and foremost, remember if you like our episodes, give them a like or a follow at Healthy Hospo NZ on Instagram, YouTube, or Spotify. I almost said Shopify. We've got the usual crew with us today. Gian down in Wellington. Laurie's with us in Auckland as well. I'm currently in rainy Mount Maunganui. And also Helen, our special guest, is down in Wellington as well.
Hello.
Hey Helen, how are you?
I'm good.
So Helen's someone personally that I was super lucky to meet around about 8 years ago. Wow, it's that long. When she was the head chef of Rata in Queenstown. Funnily enough, Helen was a regular of mine in a little bar we used to run. And outside of like the shop chat, Helen's probably one of the first people to give me this whole understanding of where chefs and bartenders have some pretty strong crossover. So it was really cool. Almost always our chats were all about flavor and that. And one of my favorite parts about Helen coming in was she'd always challenge us to work with different flavors over the bar, or she'd be like, I want something that tastes like this, or I want something with this ingredient. So it was really
That's
cool.
true, that happened.
Outside of that, Helen was always super humble, but funnily enough, she's a pretty big deal in the industry, as we found out through our research, which is amazing. She's one of the most experienced chefs in New Zealand. So basically, Helen, we wanted to get this chat with you to get some of your perspective on the industry, hear a little bit about your story, how you've got to and where, your ups, downs, and some inspiration for the young Hospo alike. But most of all, just have a great chat. So welcome.
What an intro, Jesus. I'm a bit blown away right now.
Getting the synthesis going.
Yeah.
Signed up.
Pretty cool to be invited on here. This is my first podcast, so I'm pretty excited because I listen to lots of podcasts, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, wicked.
We try and keep it pretty low-key.
My favorite one is how they made this, or something like that, and it's about this guy in America, and he interviews people about how their business started. So you have ones that are like Uber and random drink providers and all this, and it's just the beginning of their business and how they get to the end to where they're like millionaires now. And I really love that podcast. It's really, really cool. Oh, how I built this. That's the name.
Yeah, wicked. Cool.
Sorry.
I might give that a listen.
No, it's good. So, I mean, first and foremost, Helen, as I mentioned, I've only really ever met you over the bar, and we've talked about food and drink because that's, unfortunately in our industry, we're all about shop chat. But we'd love you to tell us a little bit about yourself. So who are you and where did you start?
Okay, my name is Helen Turnbull. I was born in Wellington, and I finished college completely. I did all the years, and then I had been working in a cafe while I was in kind of the last few years of school, and I decided that I couldn't work out what to do at university. I either wanted to go and do optometry or music history, and one to me was getting a career and therefore a job, and the other one was for interest. And I couldn't work out why you go to university. Is it to get educated, i.e. the interesting one, or to get yourself a job? And I just couldn't make the decision. So I took a gap year for my mum, Mum, I'm taking a gap year, and got a job at One Red Dog, which is probably quite like the one in Auckland now. It's a bit different to the one in Wellington that is now. And we used to do was it 400 people for dinner and 200 people for lunch. And Raju Rai was the head chef, and he's like a midget. So he always said to me that he employed me because I was tall and could lift stuff down for him. And he's the only kind of older person. The rest of us were all under 22 in the kitchen. And it was just, for me, so much fun. It was everything what team sports should be about. You got taught how to do your sport position better, and we all went out and had great times together, whether it was at work or out of work. And no matter how you turned up the next day, everybody would work together to make service and just smash it. And so that pretty much hooked me. The teamwork side of them, the camaraderie, I never really had that kind of clique at school of like a bunch of friends. And so going into this workplace where everybody had your back and got behind each other and helped each other grow and be better made me really interested. And I always kind of liked cooking, like it was good. I have quite a bit of family stuff around cooking, but that's what I really liked the most. So I didn't go to university, and I just kept cooking.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's such a big part of the industry, that you meet two different sides of it. And it's probably similar in the bartending scene, where you get people who have gone to hospitality school or they've started from scratch and learnt from the base up with more so experience or working on the job, learning on the role.
So and I think that the apprenticeship system is far better than going to school 100%. Because of COVID, I have just actually just signed up my first apprentice at my restaurant, and she's been with me for about 1.5 years now. She started helping me out on Fridays and Saturdays. She was 14 when she first came in, just putting like sexy things on plates, so we're going to start her full apprenticeship at the beginning of next month, and I'm pretty excited to be able to, I guess, teach what I think she needs to know, if that makes sense. It sounds really arrogant, and it's not supposed to sound like that, but there's lots of ways that people are taught how to make this and how to make that I'm just like, oh my God. So I'm really excited about doing that. Anyway, side wingle. So I did an apprenticeship at Icon Restaurant a couple of years after One Red Dog, and I got trained on the job, which was really cool. I did my practical part within 6 months. The accumulation of that was cooking 7 courses for 7 people, and then a few days later I left to go to Japan. So I did all my theory part of my apprenticeship in Japan, correspondence style. That kind of sorts that out, and then I went to Japan and hung out there for 5 years, and it was fucking awesome.
5 years, that's amazing.
I feel like I'm rambling now, sorry. You can cut that bit.
Oh, it's good. No, we love it.
So if we're going for the full CV, then I moved to Japan. Just before I moved to Japan, I got married to my husband, who I'm still married to, and we got married in 2004 and left. Arrived in Japan for my 21st birthday. I got a job in an Australian cafe where I was working 5 days a week. We're doing like Caesar salads, pizzas, it's the head chef is Australian. It's in Aoyama. There's inside, outside flow. There's a barbecue. It was pretty cool. There's lots of international people working there. But my main goal was to go and work in a Japanese restaurant, because before I left Wellington, everybody was like, you can't work in a Japanese restaurant. There's no way. Like, A, you're a female. B, you're 20 years old. C, you don't speak Japanese, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, right, well, if they say I can't do it, I'm going to bloody well do it. And in the best place to meet great people is generally at a bar. So I was out one night, and their door sign said, no taxes, no arseholes, just great music. And to go into this bar, you had to go, it's basically like an office block, and it's 3rd story up. And we generally had a policy in Japan that unless we could see what was going on, we wouldn't go in because we were too chicken. We'd just arrived, right? So we decided to go in because that sounded cool, the good music part, and we've been struggling to find some good music bars at the time. So we go up 3 flights of stairs in an apartment building, and essentially you're opening like an apartment door. And we're like, okay, we're locked in. There's no one in there except for the 2 bartenders. There's like 8 seats, and that's it. And we ended up staying till first train the next day, which is like 5:30 in the morning. And through that and going back there regularly, this is basically how I learned how to speak Japanese, and also how I met some chefs who had a Japanese restaurant. So I started working for them on my 2 days off for free. I worked there for quite a few months for free. And then I got the opportunity to work there full-time. So full-time in this restaurant is from 2 p.m. till 2 a.m., 6 days a week. I was first up employed as a dishwasher, and then I pushed my way into doing more cooking. My sensei taught me through an electronic dictionary as I learned how to understand more Japanese, and he learned a little bit of English. We basically taught each other this way until the point where I could be out in the kitchen, and like it's all open, right? So everybody that comes in can come see you, and so I'm sitting there going "Irashimasen" like everybody else is, and all the guests are like, "What the fuck? You've got this really tall white girl in your kitchen," which always got some really good looks. But once people got drunk, they always like to try and speak their English, so it was lots of fun. And I got to learn lots of cool stuff. Like by this time, I'd been cooking for a few years, so Japanese knives. So their knife technique is the opposite to French people. So French people, you cut back on your food, and Japanese cut forward on your food. So I had to pretty much start again from scratch, everything that I knew. And the other really challenging thing, besides learning how to do it all properly, which is kind of the same in every kitchen, is that their dockets were all written in Japanese. So in like hardcore Japanese, you know, not the simple alphabet, which I was beginning to learn. And so I had to remember everything. So in French, you know, or in English, you would go, okay, there's a new order, table 12, they're having this, right? So in this restaurant, they would order like as many items off the menu as you like, and then chef decides what order they're going to go in. And it was always pretty fluid, depending on who they were, what they've ordered, what other people in the restaurant are doing. And so my job ended up being, I needed to remember every single thing that they've ordered to be able to work out what I needed to be getting on to be ahead of the game, so I didn't look like a dick all the time and have my master just go, what the hell is going on? So it was good to be able to practice learning that much stuff all at once, especially in a 40-seater restaurant, and we were full most of the time.
You make it sound so easy, but that sounds like an absolute nightmare. That sounds so terrifying. And I guess probably one of the questions we have for you here was like, obviously, like how, it must have been so hectically hard, that language barrier, but also there's like a caliber of skill in the kitchen, as you mentioned, with the knives. Was that like the hardest part overall? Did you ever feel like that was going to be a make or break?
And I didn't know what I was cooking. Like, I don't know these flavors. So it's not like, oh, could you rustle me up a tomato sauce? And you've got like kind of an idea of what that tomato sauce tastes like, you know, like, you know, we're going to make this. I have no idea what the end product is supposed to look or taste like. Like,
oh my God.
It's just a family, like their culture was like a family. So we all sat down and had makanai staff meal at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, of which is how I learned how to cook a lot of things, because they taught me how to make their dishes, and I would practice them for staff food until they got good enough to go out. What was the hardest thing? Ooh. Yes, of course, that was all hard. But just like being in any other kitchen, not doing it very well was hard. I try to do my best. And so when you make a mistake, when you disappoint your team members, when for some reason you don't quite understand it, or you're not quite doing the dance, and that's kind of how I see it within a kitchen, within a team environment. If you're all dancing together, like it just works so beautifully. And when you can't quite fit in there, that's really frustrating. So I think for me, that's the hardest thing, when you make a mistake. And the rest of it was like, well, this is what I really want to do. And I think I'm pretty, I guess you planned for that, right? You were kind of expecting it, even if it was like a massive curveball, you kind of expected that was going to be the case. Yeah. I mean, I arrived in Japan and went, oh shit, no one speaks any English. Like that's how I arrived in Japan. Like there was no English where I was staying. And it's over the total of 5 years that I was there, the level of English signs just increased so much just within that short period. So
Crazy.
it's the development was incredible, and I think that if I'd been there during the bubble in the 80s, it would have been even harder, you know.
Yeah. So my next question was, you've worked alongside some amazing chefs, both in New Zealand and overseas as well. Who are some of your favorites and some of the more famous chefs you've worked with? What were they like, and maybe what are your highlights more so than anything else?
Well, Sukara was my sensei at Kwon, the Japanese restaurant, and so he was 30 when I was working for him, so I speak Japanese like a 30-year-old chef, which I think we can all understand what that sounds like. And he's definitely an inspiration to me in the sense that, he took me on, which would have been not necessary and an incredible challenge for him. And that restaurant there, they really specialize in taking your grandma's food that you've never, that you can't remember having or you haven't had for ages, and reinventing it. Awesome. So you've got a lot of people coming in going, I remember when I've had this, wow. And I really like that philosophy. So he taught me that, and also there's so much service philosophy of hospitality within that restaurant that I learned that I absolutely love. In terms of cooking, my most inspirational chef that I would always say is my head chef, if that makes sense, would be Lionel Becker from Michel Twago's restaurant in Japan. He now has his own restaurant in Tokyo called Esquisite. I don't really know how to pronounce it. But I worked in, so there's 2 Michelin star restaurant in Tokyo. I worked there for just under 2 years. It's to paint the picture, you basically have 2 waiters per table, and the kitchen is in a glass box in the middle of the restaurant that everybody sits around, and all of the chefs, including me, is in complete whites. If you get a mark on it, you've got to go out and change, and we're all wearing old school chef hats that are like this tall, you know, like the hotel chef hats, which is hilarious. To lift the roof? Yeah. Well, for me, I had to duck under every single door, you know. And I was very lucky to work there. All the Japanese, so there's 2 French chefs. Yeah, Lionel and the pastry chef are French. Everybody else is Japanese except for me. The Japanese chefs have all been to French culinary school, so they know how to cook. They've learned French cooking at school, and they speak a lot of French cooking words. When it got too much, or when Lionel was trying to explain something that they couldn't understand in French, he would then tell me in English, and then I would translate into Japanese. So actually this happened more and more because it became easier for everyone to understand, which I was really, really lucky about, because it meant that I was then involved in every single kitchen conversation. So I got to learn so much this way. And he also gave me, jumping around a bit, but in this restaurant with him, he gave me the special task of making his staff meal every day. And every day he would challenge me a little bit more. It needed to have a story, a reason behind why I'm cooking it. I could only use ingredients in the kitchen. I couldn't go and get something. So what's the story about this dish? Why have you done it? Why have you served me up it today? And then he would just rip the shit out of it, right? In a really good way. Like, he would totally critique it, pull it apart, ask lots of questions. Everybody would pretty much taste it once he had eaten it. I was like making one portion. And through this process, which, I mean, maybe I'm sounding it not so nice, but it was I was very honored, grateful to have this opportunity, and I really loved doing it. It wasn't a negative experience in any way. This really helped me question why I cook what I cook, what I like cooking, what flavors I like, and also considering my guest. So he was originally from Marseille. He's got a lot of his background of food and his personality of food. And so when you cook for someone, if you're going full hospitality, you're cooking for an individual, even if you create a full menu. So what does the individual that's having your food right now need, want, like, appreciate? What's the story that you can connect on? Because hospitality is all about connection and creating a connection. And so at what point can you connect? Can you help make that connection and create a beautiful moment with food? And that's pretty much what he taught me. He taught me how to taste. And he taught me how to believe in what I think tastes good, which is always questionable.
Yeah, that's such a huge part of like hospitality in general though, right? That experiential piece. The more you know about the people, your guests, the people that you're serving, and the more you know about your ingredients, the better the product's going to be. It's pretty simple, but a lot of people kind of miss that, right?
Definitely, because it becomes a statement as opposed to something to really connect with.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So the last piece from me was actually a little bit on the Japanese culture. How do you see the culture in Japan, maybe behind food, but just in general, differ from the New Zealand culture?
Cool. They have a very long history of food that has developed and changed over time, but they do have a very long history compared to us. And that helps and hinders them. They have a lot of cultural gatherings around food, which are really structured. Again, can help and hinder. It's something that I've found really interesting and look forward to when New Zealand stops being a 12-year-old child and starts being 65. I think our cuisine will be really interesting. And I think it's really exciting at the moment watching so many New Zealand chefs all strive to create and define what New Zealand cuisine is. And I think it will be really interesting looking back when I've retired to see what dishes survive, because there is a lot of different takes on that at the moment. And to really create a culture around food that becomes nationwide is quite an exciting time to be a chef in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. I think I love your point on tradition being a hindrance. I think we see that a lot as bartenders and wait staff as well, from silver service all the way through to like classic cocktail books. Like sometimes they should just be used as guidelines, and sometimes they're amazing, and they're amazing for a reason because they work phenomenally well. But sometimes they should just genuinely be guidelines, and we should work off them and understand how they work.
An inspiration point.
Yeah,
a technique point, a starting for those things. And then, yeah, you got to find your voice, right? And you got to know your people. It's exciting.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just
awesome.
A reference point, right?
Yeah, I think for us, yes.
But then there's also like understanding the base as well, because a lot of people will be like, okay, I kind of get the base, and then we'll go off and do something crazy. Yeah, so I think there's a bit of both.
I come back to, you can make a tomato sauce a million different ways. So how do you decide to make the tomato sauce that you need and you want? And for me, that's one of the most exciting parts about cooking. And in New Zealand, we have the ability to make whatever tomato sauce that we like, because we don't have those restrictions on it's always been this way.
Yeah, man.
I guess it's kind of like the same with music, right? You know,
yes.
there's certain guidelines, there's certain like reference points where people go and base all of their stuff, especially nowadays with modern music. There's no such thing as a new genre. Everything's just built off something. Like in cocktails, everything is a twist and an old fashioned or a Manhattan or a martini. So I think as long as you can understand and appreciate where it came from, then you'll always be able to grow, right?
Yes. Have you ever noticed that with New Zealand music, or music that works best in New Zealand, now this might be just a statement that comes from my heart, but it's the music that has space in it.
Yeah.
So if it's really dense music, it's like doesn't quite connect with being in New Zealand. But those dense tunes really work well in other countries, and I've fully enjoyed them. And then coming back to New Zealand, I'm like, I can't listen to that here. It just doesn't feel right. Like music with space really works. So now if you try and translate that into making a cocktail and go, okay, how are we going to create space within this? Or put in make a dish, because space is something that, although we might not necessarily take for granted all the time or appreciate enough, whichever way you want to look at it, it's something that totally influences our lives in New Zealand. The amount of space that we have between each other, between the shop over there, the fact that nothing's open ever, you know, space is something that we really, really like, or is a natural way of ourselves. I don't know. Anyway, side point. Sorry, we've got time.
No, it's definitely fair. I was quite lucky. I got to read a book called How Music Works by David Byrne from Talking Heads.
Oh, cool.
And just the way that he kind of spoke about like where you start in the music industry to like where you can go and how you can build on your career. The whole time I was just like, oh, this is so relatable to hospitality. It's like what you do with your space, like you're saying of like your bar, your kitchen, your restaurant. It means everything relates to what you want to portray out to people. And yeah, it's definitely an amazing book if you ever get a chance to read it. But
I am just writing that down.
yeah. So I guess speaking of space, we've seen that you've just recently opened up your own restaurant. It looks really, really cool. Do you mind just kind of explaining to us where your sort of inspiration came from and where it is? What's it called?
My restaurant is in Paraparaumu Beach, Kapiti, which is 42 minutes from Wellington. I know this because I live in Wellington.
Oh, wow.
And I drive against the traffic and into better weather every day. It's freaking awesome. And I opened it in May 2017, so we've been open for 3.5 years now. It's called 50/50 and 50-50, and the reason why we called it that is because after all my years in being a chef, I truly believe that the best customer experience happens when front of house and back of house work together. So for me, that was really defined what I wanted to deliver, was a partnership, teamwork, and where it's equally representative, and I really feel that that's the way the guest has the best time. So we opened, it's a 40-seater restaurant, and I opened with Eddie Kennedy, and it was just me and him and a dishwasher for the first kind of year and a half, which went really well. In the beginning, we did 12 dishes on our menu, 4 starters, 4 mains, and 4 desserts, and then you can order that way, a la carte style, or you can have 6, 9, or 12 courses. 12 courses would be eating the whole menu. So each dish was available to make a bigger and smaller sizes. And it's gone really, really well. I have made a profit every single week. I have a lot of pleasure in doing what I'm doing. We also opened with a concept called One Dish Wednesday. So on Wednesday nights, we serve, in the winter time, we serve a $20 dish. I just do one dish, and you can come in, sit down, have that, and have a nice time. And my concept was it was going to be like midweek takeaways, but with service and a smile. And now it's basically a whole pile of locals just turn up and go, "Oh, mate, Steve, I haven't seen you for ages. You in here? God, I only just found out about this place. It's bloody brilliant, isn't it? What did they do last week? Did you have duck? Oh, this risotto's amazing." And that conversation, happens every single week. So it's pretty awesome. Because one of my goals was to have a place that was a lot like Cheers. And I really wanted to create a kind of a community or a place where, I knew the people that were coming in, which is why I never wanted to open in Wellington Central. It was really important for me to do a suburban place. And we looked around for a long time and decided on Kapiti because the road's opening up, so there's a lot more people like me living in Kapiti and commuting into town, and it's closest to the best produce in Wellington, so I'm feeling very lucky that I've got all of that on my doorstep. Now post-COVID, we are, COVID's overwhelming, so I've kind of simplified it down a little bit, and now I just offer 6 or 9 courses. I know. So that's all I'm doing at the moment. We're going to run that till Christmas and see how things go, but so far it's been received really well. I'm basically fully booked every night I'm open, and so I'm pretty lucky, really. And Eddie has subsequently left. When you love someone, you've got to set them free. So he's now a sexy as yoga instructor taking over the world, which is really exciting for him. And I now own the business on my own and have 2 front of house team and me. And like I said, I'm just taking on an apprentice right now who's going to hopefully do more than just put sexy shit on a plate.
Amazing.
So good.
That's so good. Yeah. That's really cool. You've obviously had quite an extensive career, like in different countries as well. What made you sort of like decide that you wanted to be a chef? Because like for us, like when I guess I can't speak for Mikey and Laura, but for me, what made me really want to become a bartender was that joy and excitement of like creating something for someone, whether it's an experience or whether it's a drink, and then having them just really enjoy it. It's like, do you have one of those moments?
Every day.
Yeah, nice.
And I also love cooking. So yes, I think, yes, that is definitely my reason for being a chef, for continue to be a chef. And although all of those things still really excite me, I also have a really large garden, so I take a lot of pride in growing a hell of a lot of produce that I put on the plate. And also now, I think probably in the last 2 years or so, I have really decided that actually one of the biggest gifts I can give people is every single one of my employees I teach about business. And so it's not just teaching cooking. Like I said, I've only just got an apprentice, so I didn't really have a cooking team or anything like that. But sharing my love of business and how to run a business and how to be a business owner and what doing good business means is something that as a chef, like I've been a chef for 20 years now, you spend your whole life, I'm sure the same as a bartender, learning how to make a really cool cocktail, learning how to upsell, learning how to connect, learning how to do all the cool things that you need to do as a bartender or as a chef. But then, a lot of us get to that point where, right, it's now time to open a business, and they fail. And they fail because we don't know anything about running a business.
It's such a key part that's missed so often. It's crazy.
Ridiculous. Like even with learning how to be, who teaches costings to these junior people or anything like that. So I run a completely open book management station at my work. So every week we sit down and I run through all the numbers. And as a team, so that goes from the 14-year-old dishwasher right through to everybody on my team. I employ 7 people. We all discuss about how the numbers could be improved. If we want to buy new stuff, like, it'd be really nice to have some sexier chairs, wouldn't it? And so then we, look into how much that would cost, how much more we need to increase our revenue by that, what does that look like, etc., etc., etc. So it's great because as being a sole owner now, I have a whole team to help me make big decisions, which definitely makes feeling a lot less lonely at the top. But also, so one of my dishwashers that has been with me for 2 years, he's just left now to go and do an electrical apprenticeship. And he's came up to me and he goes, when I own my own electrical business, a lot of it is I'm going to be stronger because of the business that I learned from you. And I think that a lot of the people in hospitality, unfortunately in New Zealand, don't see it as a career. And so they are here for a little while, and that's good because it teaches them how to be better customers. But I think one of the biggest gifts we can give is how to effectively run a small business, because so many of us in New Zealand go on to do that. Yeah.
That's so true though. And even if people don't decide to work in hospitality in the long term, the skills that you learn of just working in hospitality, how to empathize with people and connect with people is just so important.
Absolutely, especially these days. And I think that, what's that? There's a business in New York that is teaming up with, it's like a hospitality venture in New York that's teaming up with Lexus. And they're like opening like a showroom that's going to have like bands playing and celebrity chefs and stuff. It's for Lexus, the car, right? And that's because they have decided that their brand, you buy Lexus because you want a Lexus. But to really connect with your client, it's about hospitality. And so they are bringing in hospitality professionals like us to help them sell cars by genuinely offering and sharing hospitality. And I think that if you're in hospitality these days, no matter what you're doing, learning that will only get you so much further in life, because connecting with people, as we've seen through COVID, is the way forward.
Totally.
Was there really anything you can like totally cut out my yabbers?
That's right.
You're so good. This is
it's amazing.
It's great.
Is there anything that you wish you knew about opening or starting up your own restaurant before you started?
Yeah, like everything. I wish someone had told me a bit more business than I know. I think, okay, hold 1 second. One thing I wish I'd known before it opened was best practice numbers. So what I mean by that is, I don't know, maybe it's chef school or what have you, taught 30% cost of goods or la-di-da-di-da. Actually knowing what best practice numbers are for your running a business. So, which I have in front of me. And I've just been going through my business with my dishwasher this afternoon. So cost of goods and wages put together should be 60% or less of sales. Overheads, 25% or less of sales, and that gives you a net offering profit of 15% or more of sales. And I think that no matter what you're doing in life or anything like that within hospitality, it's good to know those kinds of figures, like not what so-and-so down the road is doing, you know, their cost of goods might be fucking 37% on food and it's ridiculously high and la-di-da-di-da or what have you, but knowing what good best practice is, what's actually to work towards, when you've got those things to benchmark yourself against. And it also gives you a lot of confidence to make decisions. So, you know, my cost of goods and wages is really low, so it's like, okay, I could rebalance this, give people pay rises, employ somebody else. I've got options and calculated, informed options, not just, you know what, we're really busy, but I need to employ someone. It's, you know, that doesn't help you go forward, I think.
Yeah. No,
that's great. That's such great feedback and great understanding. It's something that a lot of people in the industry really don't think about too much. And I've worked in so many bars and restaurants where they say, oh, you know, because we want to touch tables as much as possible, which is, again, another ridiculous thing. But this whole idea of heaps of staff and cost of goods can always be high because of that's the style. And soon you end up at that 65, 70 mark and you're not making anything once you've paid rent. And yeah, it's just crazy. But it's an expected piece, right? It's something that nobody really knows, and you've alluded to that fact the whole way through.
I think if you're going to run a business, you have a responsibility to run a profitable business to keep people employed. And that's a team effort. That's a responsibility. That's not trying to be money hungry or anything like that. All of my profits go back into the business. I pay out like bonuses when we hit targets. It all goes back. I think, as a business owner, you're responsible for people's lives. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss. Yeah. I'm lecturing now. I'm sorry about that.
It's really good because there are many people who do open up hospitality venues who have never worked in hospitality and who perhaps don't understand this. So this is very useful and great information to share with people as well, or even young, bartenders who might want to open up their own place or whatever it might be. So, or young chefs. So really cool. I wanted to chat to you a little bit about kind of general life and challenges and things like that, because another reason we started this podcast was to essentially kind of help people get through this year and all the craziness around it. And a lot of that comes from learning what other people have gone through, what people have done with their challenges. So maybe the first question for you would be, what do you find to be most challenging working in the kitchen environment?
Now or before?
Both. Why not?
Most challenging. Getting it done, getting it right. I have a very much motivated by a please others situation, which is good for when you're a hospitality owner, but I always wanted to make sure that my sous chef, chef de partie, head chef said, yeah, you fucking nailed that dish, it's awesome. That really motivated me all the time. And so that's pretty, that's a personal challenge of mine. Once you get used to standing up for 18 hours, that's not challenging anymore. You just get into it, We're working on that with Small Fry. She's going to nail it. And challenging. I guess the hours, but I've always really liked the hours. I like working nights. It's never really pissed me off that much. Working lots of hours has never really annoyed me too much. I don't think I really have that much of a bad hours. I like working in kitchens.
Oh, that's great. That's because you love what you, and when you love what you do, it becomes easy to work the long hours, and it becomes easy to stand for
Such a good trade-off, right? If you're loving exactly what you do, you feel like you could probably work as many hours as you want, and it's not healthy, but man, it's good for the brain sometimes.
Yeah, it's not healthy, and this year COVID made me realize a few things. So I now only open my restaurant three nights a week, and that's for a bit more life balance. But those 3 days I work pretty much from 8 a.m. till midnight for 3 days a week, getting life done. So it's quite a nice balance now, I feel. Yeah.
That's a great result. 3 days a week. Amazing.
And then but I'm owner for, I do a full day in the office on another day, and today I'm here for a prep day. So, it's not really reality, but I open 3 nights a week. Yeah.
So you just spoke about life balance. What are some things you do to try and find life balance? Because I know with a lot of the conversations in kitchens are generally that, there are the long hours, you're working under stress, and you're trying to, get things done really quickly under pressure and to like a level of perfection. So yeah, how do you decompress from that? And what do you do for your own life balance?
I do a lot of gardening. I've been married for a long time. So Sundays is Joe's day, and we do a lot of, fun stuff together, and including keeping up the tradition of going for our bubble walk, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I do a lot of gardening. I've just spent 3 days in the garden. It's looking banging. It's almost TV worthy. Like, I'm pretty proud of my masterpiece down there. And this year specifically, in lockdown, I planted 60 cloves of elephant garlic, which I'm going to harvest about January, and then I'm going to put in the slow cooker for 3 months. So once we come to anniversary of lockdown, I'm going to have homegrown lockdown black garlic. I'm pretty excited. Yep.
Cool.
Amazing.
What's the bubble walk?
Like when you're in lockdown, you had to keep in your bubble, and you went out for your bubble
Bubble
walk.
walk. I thought you said bubba.
Oh, no.
I thought you were talking about walking whilst drinking bubbles.
Yeah.
That's great on a Sunday.
Me, I like all of these options. Yeah, that's pretty much me, and I like it.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess that kind of brings me to another question around, because you currently lead your own team. And I guess the question for you is, how do you kind of maintain a good, how do you get the best out of your people as a leader? Like, what advice would you give of what works for you and how you maintain, a good culture within your own team?
I think for people to be able to really achieve, you need a good, strong culture. People need to be able to feel comfortable. They need to be able to feel strong within themselves, because ultimately, as a leader, you don't want to be answering 17 million questions a day. You want to empower your staff to have the ability to make a decision on the fly and be able to support them 360. So maybe they didn't make quite the right decision. That's okay, but have the opportunity that you can be able to talk to them and go, okay, cool, you did that. That was the outcome. Awesome. Let's talk about it as a team, as a group, about all the other ways that we could have solved this. And so when you're not in the middle of service, when you're not under high pressure, and have a respectful conversation about what other scenarios could look like. And I think to be able to really achieve that, your business needs a why, and a why, W-H-Y. And everybody in your team, everybody needs to understand why. Why does the business exist? And through that, and really understanding that where the business exists because of this, and therefore that why trickles down onto everything. It trickles down to what kind of chemical you're going to choose to put in your dishwasher. It trickles down to everything. So really getting sure that everybody understands that why means that they have the ability, your team has the ability to really do well and have the confidence and strength to do that. So how do you create a great team culture? I mean, that's something that I think needs just as much work as like creating the perfect cocktail or the greatest dish. And it takes time, and it's a lot of energy. But I think having rituals, so making sure that you always celebrate people's birthdays, making sure that you always do something even if you had a bad day, that if you have after work drinks on it at a time in the week, or that, and you put those other things aside and you keep to those rituals and those celebrations, and you put a lot of structure around positives and negatives. So they become part of everything. And even when you go through ups and downs, you've still got these great things to look forward to, or understand how to go through the bad times, because you've got structure around it. And so the structure stops people from feeling stressed. Stress and anxiety is what creates terrible, terrible staff members. So I think you want to do everything that you can to reduce stress and anxiety. And that's about having great systems, great support, and great communication. Because yes, I mean, it is stressful working in a kitchen if you don't get high off anxiety and stress like I do. Yeah. But I see those things are really like, for me, it's exhilarating. And so how do I get every other person around me to be just as exhilarated about being crazy busy? Well, you've got to have a great system. So then all they've got to do is practice that system and speed it up. And so then you've given them structure and confidence. So when you've got that crazy curveball, you know, they've got a real weirdo on table 9 who's coming and asking for all these crazy things. That's okay, because you've got your system and you're just going to keep ticking along with that. And we've brainstormed about all these things we can gift people and ways we can hospitality people and look after them to tailor their night just for them. It means no one else is bothered. They just get on and they just tell me at the end of the night, guess what, table 9, they were real crazy, but we did this, that, and the other thing, and they went away as raving fans, and like we've ticked boxes, and it's awesome. And what a great story to share at the end of the night.
That's amazing. Really,
so
really
good.
Cool. And that openness, I think, is so important, right, in building that culture. And I love what you do about, you know, educating people, not just about, you know, what's happening or what their jobs are, but looking beyond that. And I think that must give a lot of purpose and reason to help be on the same team and fighting the same battle. Would you have any like suggestions for any, you know, any person, not necessarily even a young person, who might be looking at getting into the kitchen or who wants to start a career as a chef? What would you say to that person?
Okay, this is going to answer that question, but it's got to be in a roundabout way. I'm sorry about that. You asked earlier if there was anything that I would like to have known before I started my business. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is about having a business vision. So having your vision, your mission, your guiding principles, or your values, and all of those kinds of things. Having, so understanding your personal values, writing your own personal vision, and really understanding what makes you tick will be able to help you find the best kitchen that's going to suit you, because you're going to go in there and not just be grateful that you've got a job on like less than minimum wage, but you're going to look at it in all sorts of other ways. How is this team set up for teaching me? What do the other people look like? All of your personal values, that may be organized that you've got 3 personal values. You're going to go out when you do your job interview and look for those personal values within the business or within your boss. You can't change values. So if you can find a job that connects with your personal ones, you are going to excel so much better within that work environment. And the same is reverse with trying to employ staff. But I think that's where I would start, is like spend a little time working out what means the most to you, and then go out and find other people that feel the same.
I think that's some really sound advice, not just for hospitality, but for pretty much any career, really. Taking the time out to find your own values. And
it's really hard to do. Like, that's not an easy thing to do at all. But if your value is, I don't know, for me, it's definitely, I get a big kick out of pleasing others, and you go work for someone that's just totally about the bottom dollar. Well, then the way they make business choices or any choices within that business, it's not going to connect. So there's always going to be a disconnect there, where you're going to go, well, I think it would be better if we bent over backwards for hospitality, and they're like, bottom line, got to cut costs. You're never going to find a satisfying workplace.
No,
so true.
So true.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, I think that kind of leads us to the end of our questions. So we've managed to cover a lot from you today, and we've learned so much, and it's been really cool to hear about your life, but then also to get some solid advice and some solid ideas around running a business and managing a team. So thank you for taking time. I know that you're, prepping today as well, so we're taking up your work day, but we really appreciate you coming to chat to us.
I feel very honored to be able to share. It's been really cool.
We look forward to getting this up, getting everyone to hear who you are, and also if you're down in Wellington, definitely make sure you go out and make the mission, because the Kapiti Coast is beautiful. Definitely go check it out.
It's always warmer than Wellington. It's where it's at.
Yeah,
Thanks so
Well,
much,
it's not
Helen.
hard. Thank you so much, Helen.
Yeah, that was
Really
awesome.
nice. Really nice to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to sharing my 50-50 experience with each and every one of you soon.
Well, we'll do it for our Shift Notes staff party.
yeah.
Shit,
Christmas
yeah.
party.
That would be great. Have a fantastic day, and I am now going to teach meringues to my delightful apprenticeship.
Oh, sounds amazing. Thank you so much again,
Right,
and
thank you.
that's it. See you
So,
guys.
thanks, Helen.
See you.
See ya. Bye.